Is it time to reimagine your future? The right business skills may make a difference in your career. At Capella University, we offer a relevant education that's designed to focus on what you need to know in the business world. We'll teach professional skills to help you pursue your goals, like business management, strategic planning, and effective communication. And you can apply these skills right away. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Hey guys, this is my leak. This is the podcast, and I'm here today with a listener letter. I'm not going to hesitate, tee it up. We're just going to get right into it. And so, letter begins. Dear my leak, thank you for all that you do for us. My pleasure. I could really use your perspective on something. My partner and I, both late 30s, have been together for almost 2 years. And he has a child from a previous relationship. That child and their mom live in another state, and the co-parenting dynamic is pretty tumultuous. He's had to go to court to secure visitation rights, and this year, for the first time, he was allowed to have the child visit him for a few days. I asked if I can meet the child, and he said yes, but when the kid arrived, he decided it wasn't the right time. There was no discussion. He said he was worried the kid would say something about me, and the mom might retaliate and stop future visits since these aren't yet court-mandated, just trial visits suggested by a mediator. Though I was disappointed, I understood. I suggested that perhaps letting the ex know about my existence could help avoid issues, but he said he didn't need her approval, which is fair. However, it feels like I'm being hidden to avoid potential retaliation. This is especially frustrating considering the ex has moved on and has a child with her new partner. The real issue for me is that we've talked about moving in together once I meet his child, which I agree with. But since that hasn't happened yet, it means that our plans are delayed for another year. After the kid left, I asked if he realized that our plans would have to change, and he said he hadn't thought that far. It frustrates me because he's someone who loves to talk about the future, getting married, having kids, but doesn't seem to prioritize this important step of me meeting his kid so we can advance our relationship. When he talks about the future, I give lukewarm responses because it feels unrealistic when this big thing hasn't even happened yet. I had shared with him that I'd prefer we live together for at least a year before we get married and start a family, so it's not like we are going to skip that part. I suspect he's waiting for the court to make these visits official before he rocks the boat, but he hasn't said that directly. When I ask for more details, he gets frustrated, insisting that his kid is his top priority. I get that, but I'm left wondering, should we even be making future plans when we haven't even addressed this important step in our relationship? I don't want to rush him, but then he shouldn't be bringing up the future so much. I also don't want to just be waiting forever if he's not really sure. I'd love a family of my own, and time is not on pause. I don't want to come off as insensitive, but I need clarity. I also feel like just because I don't have kids, he thinks I'm not able to be objective about this situation. Just because I understand where he's coming from doesn't mean I agree with how he's handling things. Do you have any advice on how I should approach this conversation without seeming like I want him to undermine his priorities, but also asking him to be about what he talks about? Okay. Thank you for writing in, and this is a tricky one, and a few things stood out for me, so let's go through the letter with the ultimate disclaimer that this is just my take because you asked for it, and you will do, hopefully, what feels right for you, but I value the connection that I have between myself and the listeners, and so just giving you some of that, if you were my friend and we were sitting here having a 5 a.m. coffee, what I might say. I want to start by acknowledging that you put the ages in here. And so that sends a signal to me that it feels like time is running out. And maybe there's a bit of pressure on this relationship and situation due to that. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I don't understand the impact of timing and fertility. And if your fertility is important to you, and it seems like it is, my take on this is for you to empower yourself and know where you stand. Get your AMH levels tested and see if it will be difficult for you to conceive, or just see what's happening with you so that you know where you stand. You can go to a fertility clinic. They'll usually do it for free in exchange for, 1 or 2 hours of them trying to sell you this sort of egg freezing package. But most of those places will do it in exchange for, an info meeting. You can have it done with your OBGYN, or I've even recently seen some at-home fertility tests that you can have done. LabCorp recently started offering a series of tests that you can have done, fertility and even more. This puts some of the timing ball back in your lap. And I don't know, I feel like once you have that information, you can decide how loud that sort of ticking clock is. And then you can make the choice if you want to begin trying to have a child right away, if you want to explore the idea of egg freezing. But I think it gives a little bit more color to this mystery situation of like, I have the time before I move in and then I have to be married. And if you're not going to be skipping parts, I think that having this information will be empowering. Next, the relationship is almost 2 years old, which is still a new relationship, and you're both getting to see each other through a few more seasons. You're getting a front row seat into how he handles things and how important his role as a father is to him. You're getting to see that, and you'll go through more seasons, in a long-term relationship. So I pulled out some parts of the letter, and I want to talk about this one particular sentence where you said he had to go to court to secure visitation rights. And this year, for the first time, he was allowed to have the child visit him for a few days. You gave me the age and some additional context, and we are withholding that for privacy purposes. But we can say that his kid is still young, and he's gone some years not being allowed to have his child visit him. And so kudos to him for asking you to take a step back so that he can establish some comfort and safety with his child before introducing them to anyone as a friend or otherwise. If I were to put myself in the kid's shoes for just a moment, because I was a kid that had parents that split up, if I was spending a weekend with my dad for the first time in years, I'd really want to just get to know him. And I can remember times when I'd get together with my dad and he'd bring a date, and the dynamic was always different. And so you ask for my perspective on this, and I'd say it's the first time, and this already happened, but maybe there could be ways that you can ask how you can support him, knowing this is a big deal for him. And if you're interested in a long-term partnership, this child and a relationship with this child does not always include you as a part of that dynamic. So let's talk about you asking to meet the child. He said yes, but then when the child arrived, he decided it wasn't the right time and there was no discussion. So when I read this and you said there was no discussion, I was like, because I don't know that there was a need for one. He decided it wasn't the right time. But then it seems he gave you more context about being worried the mom would retaliate and stop future visits since they aren't court mandated. That makes sense. I don't feel like he's trying to hide anything from you. He seems to be trying to make decisions that will lead to his overall victory and being able to see his child more often. Now, as I was writing this, it hit me. You guys are 2 years in, and there were some years before that he had with the co-parent that you aren't fully aware of. He can tell you what happened during that time, but you weren't there. And so there's a chance there's some earlier context that might be missing. There may be some ways he behaved that he might be attempting to make up for. Again, this is me guessing. I don't know. I'm just thinking about this because you're operating in the now and what you know. And while I don't know everything about everything, I know that tumultuous relationships are rarely one-sided. But this is his priority now. But we don't know what happened during the years that you weren't around. All right, now. You says it feels like I'm being hidden to avoid potential retaliation. And this is frustrating because the ex has moved on and has a child with her new partner. You are not being revealed to avoid retaliation. He said that. His partner having another child with her new partner isn't exactly proof that she's moved on. That's more or less information because, again, we don't really know what happened between the co-parents when you weren't there. The real issue for me is that this is what you said. The real issue for me is that we talked about moving in together once I meet his child, which I agree with. But since that hasn't happened yet, it means that our plans are delayed for another year. After the kid left, I asked if he realized that our plans would change, and he said he hadn't thought that far. So I read back through to see where I might have missed that the plans were delayed for another year. You didn't meet the child this time, but I don't see anywhere that he said it would be another year before you would meet them. Did I miss that? Is he not going to have the child visit again for another year? When he says that he hasn't thought that far, I get that because he's likely thinking about the next visit and getting those next visits after that court ordered. When you say our plans, I feel like it's important to note that our means two people, and it implies collaboration, mutual agreement, and consideration of both perspectives. If it feels one-sided or driven by only one person's needs, it's not truly our. It's yours or it's his. He's got a pressing priority right now, and you meeting his kid seems like it's just below him securing court-mandated visits with his child. You want to live together for a year before getting married and having a child. And I like how you said it's not like we're going to skip that part. You want that. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have it, but in the spirit of timing, understanding where you stand fertility-wise could bring some peace of mind, easing the pressure on the timeline and allowing you to relax into the natural flow of this relationship, because plans can change. You want to be married before having a child. That's your personal value, your belief system, your guiding principle. It is important to acknowledge, though, this may not align with your partner's values or priorities. Recognizing and navigating these differences with open communication is essential to ensuring some mutual understanding and respect in your relationship. As I've gotten older, I filed a saying away that I pull out as needed. My way is a way. It is not the way. Being in a long-term relationship and having children that talk and are opinionated has gotten me there quickly. The way you would handle this is a way, but it is not the way. I remember you saying in the letter, like, I don't agree with how he's handling this. How you would do it is a way. Okay? So he's clear. His kid is his top priority, and you're not so clear because you're looking to him to help you find clarity. He doesn't need you to be clear about what's most important to him. He already knows that. And so what I'm wondering is if you can be clear about what's most important to you and how it aligns with your goals and values and how that aligns with his. And so you say the two of you haven't addressed an important step in the relationship, but you have. It's just aligned. It's just not aligned with what you want right now. And he's saying, I don't know. This is me saying, he's saying, I'll know more once I get further down the line with my kid in custody. So knowing that, what will you do? Child psychologist Dr. Becky says something that always rings in my head in moments like this. She says, our boundaries don't require anyone to do anything. She says this when she's talking about our children, and, parents will say things like, my kids don't respect me. I say, get down, get off the table, come over here. And they don't. And she says, telling them to get down is a request, not a boundary. So what are your boundaries here? And I feel like I can never talk about boundaries without talking about author Nedra Glover-Tawwab, because she discusses this concept of rigid boundaries in her book. And she says that they involve strict rules intended for self-protection, but they can lead to isolation and difficulty forming close relationships. So signs of rigid boundaries include distancing oneself from others, having unreasonable expectations, and an unwillingness to share or compromise when necessary. She says healthy boundaries strike a balance between being overly rigid and too porous. Healthy boundaries are based on self-awareness and allow for clear communication of needs and expectations, fostering intimacy while maintaining a strong sense of self. Establishing healthy boundaries is crucial for your personal well-being and the development of fulfilling relationships. And I say all this like wrapping it up with a bow but also knowing as a human being that it is difficult. It is a tango. It is a dance. It is a give and take. Having boundaries is awkward, scary, tough. Standing up for ourselves, communicating our needs. All of these things take practice, but they are possible and doable and can be done. Either grab the book, get some practice, get your scripts, get your prompts, and or get some help. So now ask yourself, are your boundaries clear, healthy, and aligned with your values? Do you know what your boundaries are? Are they rigid and set as a means of self-protection and maybe unintentionally creating distance? Or this is the time to get honest about what you need, communicate it with clarity, and decide how to move forward, whether that's continuing to navigate this dynamic or redefining the path you're on. You said you want him to be about what he talks about, but what are you talking about? The choice is yours. He's showing you where he is right now, and it's important to remember that this moment isn't permanent. His priorities, circumstances, and availability are shaped by the fact that he already has a lifelong relationship in place with his child. This dynamic will always be a central part of his life, and being in a relationship with him means navigating not only the present, but also the reality of this enduring connection. This will go beyond your first meeting with the child, you moving in, and the getting married a year later and having your own child. There will continue to be hurdles. And I'm not saying that you can't clear those hurdles. I'm just saying I want to bring this into the picture so that you can decide what your values and what your boundaries are. So the question is, can you meet him where he is now while honoring your own values and needs as you both work toward building a relationship that respects everyone involved? Being in a relationship with someone who has a child means understanding the child's needs, especially as they are dependent and vulnerable. And that may sometimes take precedence. It doesn't mean you are less important, but it does mean recognizing the nature of his responsibilities as a parent. Children are inherently helpless and rely on their parents for support, guidance, and care. There will likely be times when you'll need to take a back seat, not because you are any less valued, but because his role as a father requires it. The balance lies in ensuring that this dynamic doesn't leave you feeling consistently sidelined or unfulfilled. This is where communication and boundaries come into play. It's about being clear on what you need to feel secure and valued in the relationship, while also understanding and respecting the unique demands of parenting. Are you willing and able to navigate these moments with grace? And does he ensure that your place in his life is honored and respected, even when his child's needs come first? Let me know how I did with this one. Thank you. Thank you for sending this to me. Thank you for allowing me to just share my perspective, my hot take. I am just one slice, your good girlfriend you're having a 5 a.m. coffee with, hopefully. And so as always, to everyone listening, please don't hesitate to send me your questions at hey@mytaughtyou.com. I always love hearing from you. And if you're looking for a space to connect, learn, and grow, consider joining my online community, myleakandmamas.com. It is not just for mamas, but it's full of that mama energy, supportive, uplifting, and real. Don't forget to visit my website for past podcast episodes, and stay tuned. There is a brand new website launching in just a few weeks at myleak.com with all the details on my coaching services and more. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you next time.